So this video I thought about years ago and have jotted down some notes on a lot of aspects, but today kind of got around to it and condensed it down to what I think is most relevant. Admittedly, the title is very bold: How to Resolve All Relationship Issues with Non-Duality, Communion, and a Pillow. I do mean all relationship issues, and I also mean all relationships. This exercise that I'm going to explain in hopefully a very short video not only resolves all the issues, but more importantly resolves all the discord, tension, the stress, anger, etc. in any relationships. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you are experiencing some kind of issue in a relationship, and you might believe very much that it isn't going to change or that it can't be resolved. So just again to be clear, I'm saying this practice or exercise will resolve any relationship issue. The only contingency, and by far the most important, most significant factor, is of course the willingness to actually try this method or do this exercise or practice. While I'm going to refer to the most common relationship between significant others, again, this can just as well be applied to any relationship, such as parents and kids, friends, work relationships, neighbors, or even between leaders of nations. And again, this might sound bold and a bit crazy at this point, but don't overlook that aspect of willingness. That's really most key. And think of this as ongoing, not a do it once and you're done. But at the same time, if you actually try this and experience it for yourself once, you most likely will want to do it again. So a couple points first. How is communication different than being in communion? It's just how I'm using the words, just like anybody else. So I want to kind of define that a bit. Communication is a very broad and all-encompassing term. That could be anything from a conversation to a comment, a letter or an email, or even this video, or just body language. Communion is a slightly different distinction, in that communion is the recognition, or at least the open-hearted consideration, that while there is an experience of two people in the relationship, there's only the presence of one entity or being. Second point, before I explain the simple exercise, and again, I'm of course speaking in generalities here. When it comes to communication, safety is paramount, the feeling of safety, feeling safe. And this is very different between men and women. I hope it's not insulting, but it seems to be far more simple for men. Almost as simple as if there isn't a burglar or a bear or a wild dog. Again, generally speaking, men feel pretty safe as far as communication goes. I've learned that it's not really the same thing. Safety is not really the same thing when it comes to communication with women. Safety is much more of an emotional notion. So just consider that, and if it isn't important to you, try to consider on her behalf that feeling safe and therein being able to express and be heard has a lot to do with just feeling relaxed and safe. So the exercise in a nutshell is quite simple. It's basically taking turns holding a pillow and talking. And by talking, I mean saying whatever you would like to say, expressing, emptying, however you'd like to refer to it, without any rush or sense of urgency whatsoever. No time constraints at all. The way it works is very simple. One person holds a pillow and says whatever they want to say, and the person who's not holding the pillow very literally doesn't say a single word and just listens. It's best if the person listening holds space, and I want to mention that, but it's also it's a difficult, if not impossible, term to define. But I think it'd be suffice to say that it's basically actively listening and purposefully not wandering off in the mind or in thoughts, and not interpreting at all. Just very blankly listening and actually hearing. And then when you're done, of course, you just switch. The other person takes the pillow, and now it's that person's turn. So I'm sharing this in large part from direct experience. So some things that I've experienced from doing this exercise that I think you will too came to mind. Holding the pillow in and of itself is as funny as it may seem in terms of communicating, especially when there's an issue that you're looking to resolve. It helps with not only just kind of feeling comfortable and calm and safe, but is like a visual note or reminder that only one person is going to talk at a time, which might seem silly, but until you go to do this exercise, if you haven't before, not talking while the other person's talking might be a very different experience. So this takes a lot of what typically goes on unnoticed in relationships and the underlying tension or stress therein out of the picture altogether. The talking one at a time and listening helps with noticing what isn't happening and noticing what's typically happening, such as interruptions, talking over each other, accusations, just an infinite array of subtle mind games or manipulations, reactions, deflections, projections, just all these aspects that go unnoticed, because honestly they happen so fast and can have so much emotion behind them. But the tension of all of those activities or all of those defenses or defense mechanisms, the tension is felt and can very easily, again, because of just the speed at which it happens, be misconstrued as tension of or coming from the relationship. Again, a generality, but another thing that becomes clear is that guys are very much oriented towards helping, fixing, or solving, when counterintuitively listening is far more effective for the relationship. And if that seems highly counterintuitive, the proof really is in the pudding. Try the exercise directly to experience this. And of course, I just want to mention when guys are like this, and if females are like this, it of course comes from love. But it's very, very easy to miss the counterintuitive nature of expression as emptying, and how this is unfettering your being and I think you could safely say your relationship. When you express an unfetter of discord, you're inherently allowing the true nature or clarity to be present or more pronounced in presence. Some tips on while someone's holding the pillow and gets to say whatever they want. Be mindful of the recognition, again, that there's only one being present. And in doing so, if matters of the past are expressed, try to keep the overall point what is and going forward. Express whatever you like, however you like, while you have the pillow. But at the same time, try not to get too bogged down in matters of the past or rehashing just for the sake of rehashing. Try to refrain from making you statements and instead just express how you feel and what you think openly. Be mindful that our being is the only source there is, and if you're watching this video, be mindful that you basically want two things: to feel better and change. Some kind of experiential change in the relationship. And all change comes from our being. Try to see, and this might be asking a lot, but it's worth mentioning in my opinion, everything which has transpired in the relationship is actually coming from love. When there was anger, faulting, accusations, blame, etc., it all actually centers around and is coming from love. Just being open-minded about this can really move mountains and bring about the desired change. But to stay on point, I'm suggesting an exercise, not necessarily faith in that it will, but finding out through the direct experience of what's suggested. A specific insight, without the pillow exercise and without the recognition of communion, or that one being is present, communication can happen so quickly that it can very easily seem as if one is feeling what the other is thinking. It's a very interesting phenomena. Slowing things down with the pillow and taking turns allows each one to express and to be heard and to notice, while the other person is talking and you aren't, that indeed you are feeling your thoughts, so to speak, which are arising. Slowing things down gives you a chance to feel your thoughts before expressing what you want to express. The major insight, perhaps, to be realized is that you aren't feeling however you are because of what the other person is thinking or saying. Again, try to notice the speed at which communication typically occurs, and really try to notice by slowing down and taking turns that that just isn't the case. So as you're listening, you will very likely notice, especially the first time that you try this exercise, the thoughts that are coming up might be about the other person and might be about how you feel about the other person, but notice when you are in the position of just listening and letting those thoughts go, and I guess you could say returning the mind to actively listening or holding space. Notice that you'll then experience that's how your thoughts about the relationship or about whatever subject is at hand feel. Also, I hope it does for you. If you try it, it has for me. The pillow exercise can become kind of a segue to a different and more powerful kind of expression and communication. And while it might seem overly simple, you might find that whereas tension or emotions were held or suppressed before, you might notice now in a hindsight way that this results in a certain sneakiness of enticing each other into debates and arguments. The feeling safe and slowing down communication factor makes it so much easier to unfetter, which might sound as simple as I'm experiencing some worry about X, Y, or Z, or I'm experiencing some fear about this thing coming up, etc. And I mean that in using the pillow exercise, it very much enhances, brings a certain richness, realness, wholeness to the relationship and to communication, that then just in ongoings, these otherwise defensive mechanisms are just sort of brought to light and made more obvious to both people involved. So communication as an expression, as an emptying, to unfetter, tends to become the norm. And it really is kind of game changing and relationship changing. It's kind of life changing if you've never experienced it. Because this makes it much clearer that the discord or suffering felt is from the resistance to slow down, to feel, to express, to say what you really want to say. And it's no longer per se just reactionary or from the emotion that's felt or the situation. So perhaps the biggest picture realization is the power of communion in your relationship, that you can help unfetter the true nature together. And I would honestly be at a loss for what could possibly be better than that. The recognition of one being is just such a game changer in terms of holding space, or not getting sucked into, so to speak, your own thoughts or your significant others' concerning, discordant thoughts or emotions or tensions, and instead is really just very inherently very grounding in being, and supportive and helpful and encouraging your significant other or whoever's at the other end of that pillow, and just expressing freely. And you'll find that also comes back to you. And if the word unfettering is a foreign or spiritual word or something to you, again, the proof is in the pudding, that if you try this exercise, I think you'll really connect and really grasp and experience what that word's pointing to. Two last points that I just wanted to mention, and this one might sound so counterintuitive at first that it might just sound crazy, but this is something that after doing this once or twice, was kind of discovered or realized. Consider no longer apologizing to each other. So again, that might sound highly counterintuitive, but it kind of reinforces that it's not about the other. It's just about the expression, the unfettering, and the not carrying the tension or stress or anger or resentment or what have you. And on a last note, I've also found that this pillow exercise, as simple as it is also very effective solo, as in by yourself, with respect to any past relationships and even with respect to anyone who has passed on. Just holding the pillow alone and saying out loud anything that you really want to just say is very healing, very connective, very clarifying, and therein very empowering. You might even go so far as to say, so to speak, very third eye opening. But again, it's really all about unfettering the true nature. So give it a try. I hope you do. I hope you get from it what I have. And thanks for listening. And if you have any suggestions or any questions, check out the tools and forum at actualityofbeing.com. Thanks.